What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports. You're watching our college football channel, and a lot of times I do rankings and I talk about teams, and it really, to me, for this season especially, would make a lot more sense to put these rankings into tiers. And so that's what we're going to do. I'm going to run through all the Power 5 conferences, put the teams into tiers, and then maybe we'll do a big Power 5 tier ranking where we put all the teams into their different tiers. So we're looking at the SEC here. And again, when we talk about predictions, maybe I'll have a team at 8-4 and a team at 6-6, and everyone thinks, well, you're much higher on this team. You think they're going to be a lot better. Not necessarily. I might think those teams are pretty even. It's just how the schedule falls and everything may change those predictions. And so I wanted to kind of put them together here in tiers to really let you know what I'm thinking about these teams and how good I would put them, into the different categories. And so we'll do that here, and we'll start with tier number 1 in the SEC, and I think that's Alabama and Georgia. I'd be okay if you wanted to put Alabama in their own tier, honestly, because I think they might be that good. This team is absolutely loaded, and no, I'm not an Alabama fan. Actually, I am an Auburn fan, so it's painful to talk about this Alabama team, but yes, they're just going to be that good. I mean, I really feel like that's the case. For Georgia, the talent is there, the depth is there, especially on offense. They have a lot coming back on that side of the ball. I know they lost a ton of guys on defense, but Kirby Smart has proven, I think, already that he has the ability to just reload on defense. Georgia has the talent. They've got the depth. And I think both of these teams are real playoff contenders, and I think they are in that first tier of the SEC. So our next tier, really the majority of the SEC is in this second tier, and that's kind of the point I'm trying to make here in this video. When you try to separate these teams, I've got teams in this next tier ranked near number 10 all the way to unranked. And that doesn't mean that I think one team's way better than the other. It's just you got to rank the teams, and there are different factors that go into that. But I think all these teams are pretty similar, and I think they're all pretty even. I've got 9 teams out of the SEC all in this second tier. We're talking about Ole Miss, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Texas A&M, LSU, Tennessee, Florida, and South Carolina. Some of these teams are going to emerge and have really good years. Some of them will probably have disappointing years. I mean, you have to have winners and losers for all the games. And because of that, again, one of these teams may go 9-3 or 10-2. Another one may go 7-5. It's just how it works out throughout the season. Staying healthy, your schedule, a lot of things go into that. But I can point to every team here, and I could talk about a positive and say, well, this team should be ranked here. They should be ranked really high because they've got this going for them. But then I could turn around and say, well, this team shouldn't be ranked that high because they have this problem. I mean, all of these teams, you could say that. And, I'm not going to go really in depth in this video, but, you look at Ole Miss. You've got Lane Kiffin. You've got some transfers coming in that should give them a chance to be really explosive on offense, but they don't have a ton of depth. And that's the thing about a lot of these teams here in this tier. They've got the starters to potentially upset a team like Alabama or Georgia, but I don't know that they have the depth. And that is where I think the difference is with an Alabama or Georgia. Now, Texas A&M, they have the depth. They have a lot of talent on their roster, but they don't really have the experience. That's where they're lacking a little bit. Mississippi State, they've got a lot of experience, but they're not as talented as a team like Texas A&M. Again, you can look at the positives and negatives for every team. Kentucky, kind of similar to Mississippi State. A lot of experience coming back. They don't have necessarily the talent of a top-tier SEC team, but they've got a lot of talent. This is a good Kentucky team. Arkansas, a lot of positives, especially back on offense. Then you look at the defense, some big holes to fill there, guys that they lost from last year. LSU, a lot of talent, but it's a new coaching staff, a lot of transfers. How's everything going to come together? They've got potential to be a top 10 team, but they've also got potential to not even finish in the top 25. And that's what I'm saying about pretty much all these teams. Tennessee, they have the offense to be really, really special on that side of the ball. Hendon Hooker, I think, is maybe a top 10 quarterback in the country. Very underrated. But defense, a lot of holes on that side of the ball. Depth especially an issue for them there. Florida, love the starting lineup. I love the starters for this Gator team, but depth again, an issue, I think, for Florida, especially in certain areas. And South Carolina's kind of in that same boat. A lot of talent, especially on offense, defense. I like some of these guys on the defensive line, question marks there at linebacker maybe, and depth. So when you talk about these teams, just kind of circling back here, we'll probably do a top 10 boom or bust video. You could do that. You could put all 9 of these teams really in that video because they all have potential. There's a lot going for them to be really, really good. But there is also potential for some of these holes to show. Maybe some injuries show that they have some depth issues. Maybe they have some bad matchups. Maybe, a team has a bad secondary and they go up against a really good passing team. There are some holes on these teams. Which teams are going to emerge? That's the question, and it's hard to predict. It's really hard to predict. I'm looking at these teams and I'm trying to figure out my predictions, which will start really soon. Trying to figure out which team is going to emerge, and it's just very difficult. But I think, again, when we talk about, I think Texas A&M was maybe number 10 in my post-spring rankings because they have a lot of talent on the roster, but they don't have a lot of experience. And then you look at a team like Florida, who was not even ranked. That doesn't mean I think Texas A&M is way better than Florida. I think Florida could beat Texas A&M. I think, especially if they played in the Swamp, which I think they actually play at Texas A&M. So that's going to be a tough one for Florida. But my point is, these teams are all really even, and any of these teams could beat the other on any given Saturday, in my opinion, which means the SEC is going to be a lot of fun this year. I think you're going to see a ton of great games. Let's go down to tier number 3, and that's Auburn and Missouri. These teams, I think, are a little bit below those other teams. They have potential. If everything goes just right for them, maybe they could jump into that second tier. But a lot of question marks, a lot of guys gone from last year's team. Neither team has really recruited at a super high level. So I'm a bit concerned about these two teams. I think one of them, or maybe even both of them, will kind of drop towards the bottom of the SEC. Missouri just added a transfer, Jack Abraham, a guy that has a lot of experience. I don't know if he's a game changer for them. Auburn has some, they've got 3 options potentially at quarterback. None of them have really proven anything. And so, again, you got a lot of question marks on these two teams. Maybe one of them will emerge and kind of jump into that second tier, but I have my doubts. I think you might see some struggles from Auburn and Missouri this year. And moving on to the final tier, it's Vanderbilt. Look, I've seen some rankings out there. I've seen some posts talking about Vanderbilt maybe winning a couple of games or maybe not being the worst team in the SEC this year. There is absolutely nothing to base that off of. Ken Sills comes back at quarterback. Okay, there's one positive for Vanderbilt. But they lost a ton of guys off of last year's team, a team that wasn't very good. And maybe I sound like a Vanderbilt hater, but Vanderbilt, in my opinion, is clearly going to be the worst team in the SEC once again. And I think they're here at tier number 4. Give me your thoughts down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.